He's the modern day Zakoff of Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
That's what he wants to be.
Remember that? Yeah, that's a blast from the past, isn't it?
What the fuck's going on? Like,
Good luck. How he
just
can turn
turns his head,
on the trigger.
and this is nuts.
This is one of those photos that's going to be brought up in 100 years' time and talked about.
If the advertised price, you know you're not going to get it, just stick in a fucking low ball, because you put in enough of those, and eventually someone will just go, yeah, your hair's gradually getting better.
You will
Dave.
see. You will see.
Roundup sound, ooh, yeah. Real estate deals. We lay them down, let's get those deals. Deals, 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 making money, baby.
Welcome back, episode 14
Intro.
of the Ground Up podcast. We are back with another episode, and today there's a couple of questions we're going to go through, audience questions, and then we're going to talk about quite a few ideas and our own questions that we've come up with, diving deep on each other's mistakes and bits and bobs like that. So there should be quite juicy dialogue today. But we will start with, we cannot avoid news of the week. This man here, obviously, what the fuck's going on? Like, presidential assassination attempt.
USA.
Jack, you would make a very good American. You, Jack. You just
He is
He's
American.
already half
He's
American.
an adopted American.
I'm halfway there.
Yeah, it's like you know, if you go to America and there's typical, you see like a poster boy, blonde, just a white male, and you think that's Jack.
Loves the gym, drives a
California.
truck.
That's right. Yeah.
Captain America, mate.
He's the modern day Zakoff of Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
That's what he wants to be.
Remember that? Yeah, that's a blast from the past, isn't it?
When I was marrying my wife, one of the main highlights that I loved about her was the America part of it. Like the going out there, getting a big cigar, playing golf with the old man. That American dream is a big part of the reason.
Shooting your dinner.
And let's face it, Jack, you are very British, mate. If she was looking for a British lad, she's found one in you.
You are British. Home county boy.
Did you take your English tea over with you, Jack, and your pots?
Yeah, always took some tea over there for the mother-in-law. Yeah, it is crazy. So we woke up because it obviously happens. Obviously, the States is pretty much everywhere across the States is behind us. 5 to I think 8 hours is the furthest if you go to the West Coast. So we woke up to it, and believe it or not, my wife's family are all Trump fans. So this is like this happening, and it was just interesting to watch it unfold, even to her knowledge, and just understand it. And I was like, this is huge. I was like, when I saw the news and the clips, like this photo here, I was thinking to myself, this is one of those photos that's going to be brought up in 100 years' time and talked about, which is pretty crazy if you think about it on the context of things. There's not many photos or videos or instances that will be brought up and remembered in history, because you've obviously got, I think it was 60 years since the JFK assassination, and we've gone 60 years without anything pivotal that had happened in politics, in the US politics.
Reagan.
Probably the biggest politics in the world, other than maybe...
Reagan was the 80s, wasn't he?
Yeah, Reagan was 80s. He got shot and then came back and did a speech. That's the last bad one.
Yeah.
Although today's world, Jack's right. Everything's recorded in real time, isn't it? And you just it is definitely an iconic shot. I watched it a couple of times because just to see as well. It was quite surreal actually when you think about it.
What was your guys? I couldn't believe it when I looked on the phone.
Out of interest, guys, just like it is an interest, sign of the times sort of thing. When you first heard of this, when you first heard shit, this has happened, someone would have sent it to you or you'd have seen it somewhere. Where did you first go to then look at more detail on it? What was your first?
Daily Mail.
Okay.
YouTube.
Yeah, I went to YouTube.
Really? Okay.
It was on my phone. First thing, I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Is this a joke? Is this like some hoax?" And then literally went to YouTube and then saw it because it was live. It was still being shown live.
Yeah. In all fairness, right? We've got like a mega TV, so we can get like Sky News, Fox News, we can get all the US channels. So I would have gone to there, but most of America was asleep. So I just went straight on YouTube because I know that it would then be a static time video.
See what
did you see the headlines as well from all the big media in America?
Oh,
I posted it on my ex.
all kinds of
It's just everything about him, just denying he was shot.
Yeah,
It was like
yeah.
he's fallen
it was
this.
mad.
Nothing was there. No one was, and that's obviously blue side. But
So what I find
yeah,
slightly
it's just
interesting, is I went to YouTube initially. The first thing I did was YouTube is this real? And then when it's real, then went straight to X, because on X you can see, because of the modern day we're in, you could see like 100 different camera angles from the audience because of the hashtag. And then you could see not only the mainstream media's one, and then you could see this guy with his camera phone filming the shooter on the roof as he's crawling up, and they're screaming out to the police saying, "There's a guy with a gun on that fucking roof," and none of them do anything about it.
Yeah.
And you can see how ridiculous and incompetent the situation was from the people's perspective. It was mad.
You know the ginger chap who said about them trying to say like 2-3 minutes
Yeah.
before. So that was being played on YouTube, and I watched that like 4 or 5 times, like trying to work out, or just trying to take it in to say like, were they just letting him going to shoot? Were they just letting him going to shoot Trump? Was this like, you know?
Well, they were saying it was outside of
deeper
their
on the
jurisdiction or
establishment?
something stupid like that, wasn't
But
it?
Yeah, that is
the
the
BBC
police's
when
jurisdiction.
that come on. But when the BBC come on, they just cut all that bit. It was just the bit about at the start, and it took a whole 24 hours for them to start playing the rest of the reel, because they clearly knew that it's now out in the open.
Yeah.
It's mad. It's just trying to piece it all together. So, what do you actually think happened? Do you reckon this Matthew Crooks is just mental?
I think so.
Just done it off his own back.
I think so. I don't. There's no clear evidence to point otherwise, but I do think it's a part of, all politicians in America. Certainly, the sensationalism and the division is much more extreme than it is in the UK. And in the UK, it's pretty bad. And you can see the news clips. Piers Morgan did an interesting one where he got a load of debaters on to talk about this straight away afterwards from the left and the right, and he played a little montage of the Democratic Party and Democratic supporters saying all kinds of outrageous things, comparing him to the Nazis and to Hitler and things like that. And there are psychopaths out there who look at shit like that and go, I could be a vigilante, like I could save the world from this guy. So I do think that's a possibility, that someone deranged enough got to that point. But the fact the Secret Service couldn't preempt a psychopath on the closest roof to the field, like, there's an incompetency there. So
it's almost a setup.
If there's any, conspiracy,
it's going to probably encourage more potential attacks. If they can, there was a breach like that. If it's that easy. But
personally, I think this was a long time coming, because they obviously, Trump went in reign, lost his reign to Biden. Biden's now in case. Trump is coming back in and actually getting more favourable votes, and they've tried to legally crush him. So they've obviously brought out all of these legal cases to try and crush Trump. Didn't necessarily successfully succeed, because he still has a chance to run for government. And the next easiest thing in a country where you can carry a gun is to just shoot him. And there's the population, and like you've said, is in America, is I feel that the American population is kind of like basically like the English population on drugs. Like, everything's exaggerated. There's way more extremes in America. If you watched all the programs with like Louis Theroux and the most hated family in America, it is very extremist. There's obviously tons of normal people there, but I do feel that you do get way more extremists, and there is a big drug problem. So it's not just the fact that it appears like it's our population on drugs. They are most of them. Most of the trouble is their drug problem also out there.
That's the opioid crisis, isn't it? Where they've allowed far too many prescription drugs over the counter that shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Was that the Sackler family? Was that the?
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah, but so they've obviously tried to bring him down legally, and from a conviction perspective, haven't succeeded. And then you're going to get someone that just goes, I know what, rather than try anything else, I'll just climb on a roof, which I'm amazed it happened, because I just think they got sloppy. Like, it's been so long, and if you've done hundreds of rallies back to back, you're not thinking about a shooter on the roof. Got sloppy. Someone took their opportunity, didn't quite.
In a red state.
Well, do you know what? There was
in a red state as well.
I'll give you something slightly interesting, because I did dive into I didn't go too deep in the rabbit hole on X, because there's too much shit on there. But from some of the interesting ideas that came out from, CEOs, leaders in America and corporations and things like that. And one of them was pointing towards Cheetle. I can't remember her first name, Mrs. Cheetle, who's the head of the Secret Service. And her agenda has been to make the Secret Service 30% female. So not a meritocracy, but following DEI incentives. And DEI is destroying lots of sectors, because rather than a meritocracy where the best of the best are put in positions, they're picking based on diversity agendas. And you can see actually in some of the footage, there's these 3 little girls, like these little ladies, there as bodyguards, and they clearly can't do anything to protect Trump. And then one of them can't even get the holster in her thingy and shit like that. And it's not fair to necessarily judge them just on that moment, because it's a high octane moment. But the fact that the head of the Secret Service is pushing for DEI agendas is going to mean that the best of the best aren't in the right places, and that trends through all levels of the Secret Service and our institutions. And it's those things that make things incompetent, because the incentives are all wrong. Rather than the best of the best, it's how can we make sure we've got enough diversity from races and genders and ages and nationalities and all that kind of shit. And I think that's ultimately what's probably led to this bad decision here from the Secret Service. It's just incompetence.
I mean, it was a bloke with a sniper looking directly at the shooter.
I was going to
say, looking at it for 3 minutes. You know,
I'm more of that. I'm less of the issue that there's the diversity or the women. I'm more of the issue is that humans, right, like ourselves, we like to try to make sense of something, but ultimately it could just genuinely be an absolute nutcase of a person developed an extremist idea, watching really bad things that medias have twisted, and decided to be a vigilante, as you said, and just tried to take a shot, really, and I think he was doing a greater good, just a warped kind of view. But I think the failure, high level reading, and obviously knows it, is that they had the Secret Service had their domain, and they were reliant on also the local police force with their territory and their domain, and whatever debrief they did, there's a clear fundamental breakdown of communication between the reports the police had that there was a shooter on the roof that was in the police's domain, that they didn't even potentially tell the Secret Service that there is any threat at all. And if you're in panic, I know they should do their own checks, but they were given a clear area and they were reliant on the local force also for their area. So, like, objectively, it's very hard if the partnership you're working with hasn't filled their obligation, because they're going to take all the slack when actually could very well, if they may have not had any report whatsoever. But then I also agree with you, Stuart. All it would have taken is to do a scope around, and unless the slope of the roof was so extreme that you just could not see it, even with a sniper there because of the angle. Again, I don't know that.
I was listening to
it was 100. It was 150 yards, right? I can hit a golf ball further than that.
Yeah,
get it close to the pin. I mean, you can see a bloke on a roof.
But from what Dorian, I've seen so far, there's no really.
I listened to an ex-military guy who's talking about the relationship between the police and the Secret Service, and it is the Secret Service's responsibility to scope the area regardless of jurisdiction and instruct the police. So they should have gone to the police, stick a guy on that fucking roof. You just have a guy on that roof, and then
wasn't it health and safety concerns or something?
See, these, and that's the DEI stuff, the bad incentives, creating incompetencies and permissions and poor regulation, and there's just too much like fluff and bollocks in these.
Well, I was talking about what site yesterday, just like bringing it back to construction quickly, and we was talking about something. I said, "Oh, can we just use a ladder for that?" No, you can't. Health and safety. I said, "Health and safety for ladder, just get it." Like I'm not talking about climbing the Empire State Building with a ladder. I'm talking about going up one floor with a ladder. Yeah, you can't do that. It's just
talking about health and safety. I've got a meeting this morning at 9:00 with a guy called Dave Ford. He's on YouTube. He's in the circles of property development. So I've paid him just to come in for a day. Now he's worked on the train lines and done all this stuff when they were putting all the what's it called it? Network rail. I'm going to learn about it all today.
Crossrail.
Network rail, yeah, but the new one, Crossrail. Cheers, Jack. Yeah, Crossrail. He's worked on Crossrail. He's been involved with 6 deaths that have happened on construction sites, and he's coming today, and he's a proper geezer. Like, he's a lovely guy, and he's going to sit my guys down. We're going to take 2 hours out, and we're going to go around our site and just look for hazards and look for new systems and things we can implement.
Oh, I have fun.
But yeah. It's going to be great. I'm going to get absolutely grilled. So I'm expecting. He's a really good storyteller. So he'll sit all the guys down, and he just basically, like, my duty is to get people to and from sites and get them home to their families and kids.
Yeah.
That's before profit, before anything else. Is to make sure everyone goes to work and gets home safe.
Look, it is important. Like, it is so easy in construction. People can genuinely die, but it is what sometimes, and this what I'm about to say now does not just relate to construction. Is like anything. I find that sometimes when something happens and the majority have been doing, a same thing for decades, and there's been like hardly any accidents. Someone makes a mistake, and then all of a sudden a regulation comes in because of that minority that's now affected the whole majority, that time past and future haven't really had an issue with it, because not just in construction, but like in anything, you'll find that if something happens, a new law will come in to target that when it's only happened to like 1 or 2 or 3 people, when actually 1 million people have actually done it or been involved and they've all been all right. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if anyone's
they say the best time to do a skydive or a bungee jump or any of those things is when someone's recently died on it, because everyone's a little bit more heightened and safety conscious. Actually, when I booked a package holiday. I booked a package holiday. I was probably like 19 to like Australia and New Zealand. Did like basically a gap year, but not a gap year. But anyway, I was sat in the like travel agents, and the woman said, "Do you want insurance for extreme sports?" And I went, "Oh, might make sense. What sort of extreme sports?" She said, "Bungee jumping, skydiving." And I sort of said, if something went wrong in bungee jumping, skydiving, what am I going to need insurance for? I'm going to be fucking dead. And she was like, "Yeah, fair point."
Fair point. Just quickly back to Trump. Just 2 things. Obviously, condolences to that fire chief who jumped in front of his family, which was total respect to him, man. But how lucky was Trump? I mean, how close can you get to survive?
Let's play this then. One of you sent this in.
Yeah.
And this is nuts. I don't know how exactly accurate this is, but it looks right.
That is mental, isn't it?
That is mental.
One more time.
That is pure luck. How he just
turns his head
on the trigger.
So I was also saying to my brother, I think his skull might have ricocheted it if it was still on the angle a bit. Like it's a pretty difficult shot to take. 120 meters it was, I think, which is 400 feet.
If the shooter had a sniper, surely the velocity would have blown his head apart anyway, just being that close. Because
it wasn't a sniper, was it?
Yeah,
it was a rifle, but I think that it was not as powerful.
Yeah, sorry,
but if that was a sniper, it would have blown his head off.
So I just remembered, for the purposes of anyone who's listening who isn't watching the video, we just played a little snippet where someone created like a fucking, what do you call it?
Model.
Yeah, like a 3D model of Trump's head, and as he pivots and the trajectory of the bullet just as it goes past, so where it would have entered his head, and then where it skims as he turns his head. Well worth watching that little video. I don't know how accurate that is, but I mean, when you watch, you can see the bullet in that famous photo, and it is literally like just past his head, so it's probably not far off. Madness.
It's probably worthwhile us actually showing people that are watching the rifle that was used, which is the AR-15, which is an assault rifle 15. I mean, they're just super dangerous weapons. It's, talking about allowing guns into, there's in America, you can basically have any gun you want. Well, I've been out there and I've shot 50 cal, like rifles. I've shot like assault rifles and all bits and bobs, just completely at free will in like the desert, without anyone, knowing, and that's completely legal. But there's obviously certain tools out there like the AR-15, which are just built for, bad stuff, really. A nice fun handgun is a little bit different. It's for close protection, and it's you can't shoot someone from that far away. But these, it's amazing that the US allow guns, and also allow guns that can, really, there was that shooting in Las Vegas where someone had an assault rifle on the top of a hotel, which is spraying it into a crowd. And it's amazing that they continue to allow some of those weapons to be allowed.
Jack, I'm interested to get your take on this, because I'm sure your missus will have a take on it. But my understanding is that America is different because of the constitution that was set up when America was founded, i.e. they were sick of the European dictators at the time. This is going back a few hundred years, and they wanted to escape and create a new world, a new land based off of new commandments almost. And they had the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. The first one being freedom of speech. And the reason they made that the first one was because they were oppressed with freedom of speech in Europe, and they wanted to make sure that was the number one thing America stood for. Anyone can say whatever they want and you can't be prosecuted for it. The second one was the right to bear arms, because of the oppressive nature of the European queens and kings and governments who were oppressing people. The idea being, if the people have arms, it's harder for the government to oppress them. So I know there's always this argument of why do America just allow guns? But it's like, well, that is what makes America. America is different because the people have military power. They have weapons, as well as the freedom of speech and the other aspects of
but bear
America
arms
that makes America.
It would be
the only thing is,
why can't you just restrict it to handguns?
Well, back when they brought that in, though, Ryan, I just checked 1791. The type of weapons around in 1791 a bit different to
but I don't think it's the type of weapons. I think the idea is that if the government have a certain type of weapon and you can't have a certain type of weapon as a person, well, then the whole point of the Second Amendment is gone, because, well, you might have a handgun, but if they've got a load of semi-assault rifles,
rocket launchers,
whereas it should be an equal playing field. And I think that is the whole point of America, is that the people should be as powerful as the government, should never be able to be overthrown by the government. So the biggest fear to American power is that the people can override the government militarily because they've got enough weapons and armory, and that makes America, which, I'm not American, but I respect that they are different because of their constitution. Whereas here, we've been oppressed for so long by our monarchies and things like that we would never think of overthrowing our government. But obviously they knew that at the time, hence setting up America. What do you think of that, Jack, with American misses?
Yeah, I mean, we have conflicting views on this. I don't think guns should be. I've got a shotgun license, just because I occasionally like shooting clays and bits and bobs. But I don't think that in the day-to-day public that their guns should be there, because it forms a retaliation, and then you have instances like we've just been talking about with Trump, and even worse, like I mentioned, where people go into schools and they've got that at their hands to really cause some damage. My wife's of the view that if someone wants to kill someone, they'll kill someone. So whether that is a gun, knife, or a brick, it's they have it in their mind they're going to do that. But it would have been interesting to see Matthew throw a brick from 400 feet.
When I was in Memphis, Memphis have a gun law that as long as you've got a license, I think you can carry a gun openly or concealed. And I was just in Walmart in Memphis, and there were people walking around with guns in their belt holsters, so to speak. It was for me, it was quite
crazy. Yeah. We went to Vegas for New Year with my in-laws, and the father-in-law just did take a shotgun in the back of his truck just for safety. And I was like,
just in case.
Where are we going? We're going to war.
but just going to drive through Iraq a minute, Jack. So
just take a slight detour. I mean, it is pretty dangerous down by the border of Mexico. It's actually one of the most dangerous places in the world, Tijuana, which is only 10 miles from the San Diego border. But anyway, so I feel that I do feel that the ruling is archaic. I feel that the Americans are kind of like be all or nothing. So they like the theory of the commandments. Maybe they need tweaking, but they're so set on the 10 commandments they can't rule out one, because as soon as you rule out one, you start hindering the history and the principles of it. So I feel that they're kind of, to some degree, this may sound disrespectful to them, but I don't necessarily mean this, but because it's been around for so long, they're kind of brainwashed into it, in the sense that that's their solid views, and they're brought up on the 10 commandments from the date of birth. If you raise a child from the age of 0, telling them something for their lifetime, they will still believe it when they get older. And that is why religion is most commonly passed down through generations, and very uncommonly found later on in life. Actually, the most did you know the most common conversions of religion is in prison, where people find God and then
find God,
find themselves.
It's also the most common reason of people voting a certain political party. It's because their parents did, their relatives did. Just very quickly though, I made a mistake from what I just said there about Memphis. I just want to re-clarify that. I said that in Memphis that you can basically have a gun open or concealed with a license. Apologies. That was what it was when I went there. It's changed now. You don't even need a license anymore. As long as you're 21 years old or more, you can carry a gun without a permit, openly or concealed.
I mean, so it is crazy. If you go into a Walmart, you can buy Pop-Tarts, a T-shirt, a basketball, a shotgun, 50 cal ammunition, a tire,
hopefully a little
oil
book
for your truck. You can literally go in there and buy everything.
See, Jack,
it's crazy walking down the aisles and seeing a kid just being like looking up at a load of shotguns, and then they're just on the shelf.
Do you know what? I think it is a cultural difference. I think this is where we look at Americans and we think, well, they're just like British people with a different accent, and but they are culturally different because of the Constitution that was created. And we couldn't in the UK introduce guns. We couldn't. Culturally, we're not set up for it. We're not built for it. Whereas they are built for it, I believe. They've got an opioid crisis, which doesn't help with psychopaths then getting weapons. They need better licensing and things like that. But I think if they took away their right to bear arms, I think it doesn't make America what it is. America is America because the people can protect themselves to the upper limit of 50 cal rifles and things like that. And I wasn't brainwashed by American dogma growing up. I just see it and go, it makes sense, that their freedom, that they decided when they set it up that you got the freedom of speech and the freedom to protect your speech at any cost. And that is what makes America America. And I think if they lose...
but they've also got a lot of land, and at the time everyone was spread out and had their own space.
Yeah, I do really rate, a lot of their ruling and protection. So, for example, if someone's on your land, you can shoot them in most states, and also if you get shot at by someone on your land and shoot them, you won't go down for manslaughter, which you will in the UK. It's very difficult to protect yourself in your own home in the UK, which I do think is out of order. There's actually a really interesting Winston Churchill phrase that he stated: British and Americans are two people separated by a common language. And what he's getting at is it's almost like two different countries, the most far apart cultured people, but they have the same language, and the language is the only thing that is common. And I completely believe that. If you meet someone from New York, I feel that they're half English. If you meet someone from West Coast America, California, there's zero English in them, and that's how I sort of see it. And there's in the Deep South, it's probably more that they're fully American. But I mean, obviously the US is a huge powerhouse for the world, and that is why it's so important us all hearing about this news. They do shift, they have a heavy weight in the world affairs, and that is why this is obviously so important. And they've been through the ringer. When I say my wife's Trump fans, they're not really necessarily just trying to be Trump fans. They just don't like the liberal Biden movements, and there's not really much other choice. And I feel that it's kind of picking a bad of two parts, best of a bad bunch, to some degree.
What do you think? Do you think this has now made it a landslide for Trump to get in?
I think Trump had the edge anyway. I think this has hugely benefited him, and that's why loads of crazy people are conspiracy theory that it was staged. And I don't know whether my mind's too innocent. I always just look at things and go, well, the bloke's probably weird and climbed up on a roof and shot and missed. Like that's
I do that as well, Jack. I don't really go into things too much.
I think that is the case here, though. I think it is a deranged individual who was a Republican that then donated $15 to the Biden party shortly before he then went up on the roof and shot someone. But for anyone listening, stay tuned, because there's going to be a lot of investigations into the Secret Service and other stuff, and we should get more answers over the next. It's going to take months.
They're not going to give us the real answer, though.
No. It's like the JFK assassination, isn't it? Who really did it? But anyway, that's
and also just quickly on Trump, he's doing a talk at Memphis Bitcoin as well, which means Bitcoin's been pretty bullish over the last few days since the shooting, and he survived. So let's see what happens with that.
I set up a Bitcoin, a crypto account on the.
Oh yeah, Big D. Hold on, Big D.
We finally orange pilled him. Well done, mate.
It's one of those.
Have you put any money in yet? It's setting up an account and it's throwing in a few $100.
It wouldn't let me. It wouldn't let me put money in a second. I'm going through the verification process that I've had to submit my ID and stuff like that. I don't know whether the regs have changed since you set your account up, but apparently I set the account up. Now I've got to give my ID. Now it's got to get verified, and only once it's been verified, then I've had to pass a test. They give me a test to do about the risks of cryptocurrency. So I've done that. I passed.
Sophisticated investor. And that's all the FCA law. That's all British. Law that you're trying to get through now, which is a lot of hurdles to get through. But once you get through it, and you can start putting a bit of money on.
Yeah,
and also the bank limits
should be released today, I think.
The bank limits as well, Stu. I don't know if
they've lowered that now. When you could only put a maximum of £2,000 a week into crypto. But is that still the case?
Yeah.
They dropped that.
That's still the case with some banks. Yeah, not with Metro though. With Metro, you can stick however much you want, but HSBC limited 2,500.
What's limited to the 2,500? Sorry,
so they'll only let me send 2,500. Actually, I think it's a day. I can only send £2,500 for my HSBC.
No, it's a week. It used to be a week.
Now it's a day,
really?
but a maximum of 10,000 in a month. So I can only send 10 grand in a month. But Metro, I could just send. Well, I've never actually tried to send more than 10k in a month, so maybe that's limited as well. But it's not limited to 2,500 a day. So Metro's different. So I think the banks have adopted different regs
to stop the bleed, mate.
Yeah, it's to stop the bleed.
To stop the bleed.
That's why, to stop the bleed.
Or to slow down the bleed. But if Trump's doing a talk at Memphis, it's the biggest crypto conference in the world, and if he has any sort of, if he says anything about trying to peg anything to the treasury of Bitcoin or backing the dollar against Bitcoin, it'll go to 100 grand overnight. It'll just rocket like you've never seen. It's coming, but we'll see.
And also, we've got verification as well now that Jack's actually been studying Bitcoin since 2017, so he is a Bitcoiner.
Yeah.
He's just not there yet, are you, Jack?
I'm not,
the whole purpose of this podcast.
You lot are like vegans. Like fucking, they talk more about it than they eat fucking vegan food.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah.
But all right, we'll move on. We'll move on for Bitcoin. But anyway, Bitcoin. So we've got a question from Jake Meakin, who sent this to one of you boys. I think it was Jack, Stuart.
No, I think
it was me this morning. I've got I put a pod thing up on there. I haven't sent the responses in, but we've had 2, 4, 6, 8 more questions, so I'll WhatsApp them over.
Yeah, beautiful, mate.
And we'll do them in episode 15.
Lovely stuff. Well, yeah, Jake has said, thank you for your question. When doing commercial to residential conversions, how do you estimate the cost of conversion when putting your offer forward? Per square foot or more in depth? Also, I know you do a few various locations. Do you use the same build team or do you tender local contractors? And if so, where have you found the best place to find them? Keep up the good work. Very inspiring, Jake. Well, big love, Jake. Thank you. There is 2 separate questions there. So starting with the first one, when putting an offer forward, how do you estimate the construction costs? Start with Stu. Go on
then. Yeah, so when I'm putting, I do 2 things almost in 3 phases. So we do a high level appraisal, look at the site, what's it going to be worth when it's finished, and work backwards. Take off the profit or 25% if we can make it on that particular site, and then work out what's left to build it, and then we'll divide that by the square foot of the building. And if it's coming in around, well, it depends on the building type. It really is 6 to 1.5 dozen the other. We're looking at between 140 and 250 a square foot, depending on the building type and how much involvement there is with extensions and bits and bobs. If that number works high level, then we'll potentially put an offer in. We'll then talk to investors, look at the deal high level. If the offer's accepted, we'll then break it down a bit further. So we'll start looking at more nominees, looking at, we're taking this into account all the time. It's just the experience you've got. But and then once we've got planning permission, if we've been accepted, or if the offer's approved, we've bought the building. Once we've bought it, we are now completely stripping the building out, getting engineers, architects over there straight away, looking at value engineering the site, and then we'll look at off the plans. We'll then price everything up linear, so we'll have a whole list. And we also rely on all this data when we're guessing effectively at the start, which everyone has to guess, even quantity surveyors. No one knows what it's going to cost it's actually built, but we're using previous data that we've collected from previous projects and applying that true data to our guesstimates at the front end. So it's a constant balancing act. The one in Twickenham, for instance, we priced up almost a complete different scheme to what we're going to build, but there's just no point wasting time now while we're going through the planning process. Let's get planning secured, and then we'll break every single task down, apply real data from previous projects, all the anomalies. We've now had all our quotes in, and we've obviously paid for all our utilities and stuff. That's all now in the mix and in the pipeline to be done. And then we'll put our final appraisal when we take development finance out. We'll send in those costs, get it backed by the monitoring surveyor,
nice,
and build, and try and bring it in on price.
And
that's
then
what we do.
What do you do to find the build team?
Well, we're a contractor developer. A developer contractor. So we are always trying to build our team. We've gone from a team of 8 to a team of 15 just on the Farnborough Bank, and we've just organically taken on one of my best friend's lads who's on this summer holiday. So we've put him straight through to a day health and safety course, gotten some hard steel toe caps, and gone, right, get to work. And now he's sweeping and cleaning, and it's built into that culture. And we sort of taken another another 4 guys on as well, who, one at a time, who have come from different paths and are doing different things. Some of them are really into property development and want to get more involved. Some of them are semi-skilled in a certain task. So we're just constantly recruiting. You never stop recruiting in business. And but we're building our development team, and then we've got subcontractors who are watching us on social media and Instagram, watching what we're up to. Obviously, we're very proud of our quality, and it's attracting other people who are also proud of their quality, who get in touch and say, look, I'd love to get involved. There's an opportunity. And it happens to be a dry lining team of 5 who have got a great reputation I've never heard of, who have been watching what we're doing. And all of a sudden, we've got them on board, and now they're absolutely smashing it, and now will become part of our dry lining team for the next 3 or 4 projects. So, good quality creates good quality. So we're just using all of the tools around us, and obviously this podcast, you never know who's watching. So we're just constantly recruiting.
Banging. And Jack, what about you? Both questions: how you come up with the costs and how you find the team.
Yeah, so on conversions, we do we do 2 metrics just to sort of cross value them and make sure they're accurate. But we average about 150 to 200 pounds per square foot for a conversion. Obviously, 150 if it's an easy fit out, if it's got more complexities, if you've got low ceilings and you've got to think about services, if you haven't got risers, 200 nearer to 200 a square foot. And that is plus abnormals, externals, and fixtures and fittings and equipment, floor finishes, kitchens, things like that. If you're building, we've got a scheme in North London. One of our flats is going to be worth £1 million. We've got a flat in Abingdon in Oxfordshire. One of those flats is going to be worth 300 grand. The kitchens are going to be a very, very different spec. So you can't say it's going to cost 100k a unit when it's 70 grand just for the kitchen alone in the one in London. So 150 to 200 square foot plus all those 3 metrics. Then we average it out per cost per unit, because in a flatted commercial conversion, it's sometimes easier to reference cost per unit because that's a more accurate way to look with the kitchens and fixtures, fittings, flooring, second fix items, etc. And we average about 80 to 120k plus VAT, plus fixtures, fittings, and equipment, and normals and externals. And then once we've pulled our in-house numbers together, as Stu said, that there's an element of guesstimation and educated guessing and using the metrics that you have, we would then get a bid forward. Remember, once you get a price secured, there's no reason that if you find out information between the offer going out and buying the site that you can renegotiate if you're miles out. We would then obviously get a QS to pull things together and tender. Once you've tendered, you then get a flavour of actually what it's going to cost. So unlike Stuart, we instruct a main contractor on a fixed price JCT contract. We like doing that because our team is lean. We're delivering £40 million worth of development with 7 people in the team, and we can do that, and we can expand and contract according to how many sites we want to deliver. And that's why we do a fixed price contract. Also, if we're taking the acquisition planning, investment, safety, market risk on a site, the last thing we want is to be making 5% on a build contract. It's just not the exciting part for us, which is why we don't have construction in-house. But then once we've tendered out, we obviously pick a contractor and let them crack on with it. And then they're held by that contract to finish on time and on budget. And if they don't, they start paying us, which is what we like to push the construction onto someone else, because that margin is a finite. But that's roughly a build for a conversion, if that makes sense.
Nice. Dorian, same thing, mate.
Yes, it's all really good points. And to be honest, I don't really have much to add on. The only bit of advice really I would say, other than pretty much everything that's been said, is if I was to start out, I would probably just do one project first, and get my own data, because as the guys have alluded to, it's you don't really know until you do your first one, you don't really know how much things cost or roughly what they should come in at. And if you go off and secure 5 sites and your appraisal was incorrect, and you get the same issues on all 5 at once, it could be the end of you very quickly. So that first one, as much as you'll try to do it properly, unless you JV with somebody who's really experienced and has been through it, you're going to make a ton of mistakes. It's going to make you less money than you anticipate, and it's going to take you longer than you think, more than likely. So that's in terms of the working out build cost, combined between what Stuart and Jack said, there's nothing really else to it ultimately.
Nice, mate. And obviously you've got your own in-house team, isn't it? So you You don't need to go looking. I'd echo.
We've got time for. I'm sorry, mate.
Sorry, I'll just say I'll echo what Dorian said as well. If I was starting out, and this is pretty much what we did as well, and also bear in mind the question is, I think, more centered around what would you do when you go in for the offer, so the offer stage, rather than necessarily at the point of quantifying the whole scheme. And you are limited depending on how you structure your offer. So if you structure, say, an option agreement, and you've got more time to survey the site and things like that whilst you're getting planning in, you could maybe be quite diligent on getting those costs narrowed in and getting, multiple quotes from different contractors. You could have a contingency or a condition of your purchase that if the construction is XYZ, or if you find some sort of abnormality like asbestos or something like that, then that could be deducted from the purchase price, but you need surveys to back that up. There's things you can do at the offer stage to mitigate risks. But for us, what I used to do on the when we took on apartment schemes, because we only had HMO data, I sort of applied the same principle and went, what's the average cost per unit? So per 1 bed, per 2 bed, and adding on the rooms. So essentially a 1 bed is the same as a 2 bed plus an extra room's worth of cost. If the sizes of the apartments are roughly the same and an average, if there's one that's significantly larger or something, then maybe add a bit more weight to that one, and then add on the structural works, the prelims and everything else. That's a quick way I think you can assess costs. An Excel sheet that just goes, what's your fit out cost? So this is for fit outs as well, not obviously building up the any structural works, but you can quickly get to numbers that will help.
Yeah, Stuart's right though. One of the biggest things said with like commercial conversions and new building away, but also with commercial conversion, the type of building that you have. If you get a rectangle and there's nothing structured internally, your cost is going to be more than likely significantly cheaper than if you have a building that's basically solid brick build with walls, and your architect's gone and redesigned by knocking most of those out, and they're a little bit, so that's where like inexperience comes in. You get a build and you give it to the architects, and sometimes they will literally do a design which removes like load bearing walls that will, and just it adds so much cost. So like great like Jack, for example's business partner has an architect's practice, but also is just naturally a value engineer, so if that's even a word. But so it's great, and it thrives on getting the best out of a layout, minimal cost, maximum sale price. If you've never done that before and don't have anybody in your team to do that, you're going to end up, doesn't really matter how hard you try not to, with a design that's probably more inefficient, especially for your first one, than it could be. And then you'll get on site and you'll start doing something, and you're like, why the fuck are we taking this wall down halfway through? It's costing a fortune, and it's just, and for what? Like, we're going to knock the wall down so we can make, a walk-in wardrobe. What the hell? It's just,
I think
having a good architect.
Having
a good architect and making sure that someone's building that value at the point of the design, because what a lot of time happens is you get a good architect, or an architect will go in there, look at the scheme, and will squeeze as many units as they can into an existing block by taking out fundamental walls. And then when you get planning permission for that, you're great, you do your numbers on it, and then you come to build it, and then you start applying the technical structural ability around the building, and you're paying 30-40% more than what you could have done by taking that into account on day one. So it might have been a lot more cost effective to effectively lose one of the units and design everything around the existing footprint to save yourself 30% of cost. So it's always good to have the structure in mind at the front end when you're designing these schemes.
Jack, you like hacks, and so sometimes when you're looking at a layout, do any of you guys do this? Like we know, for example, the average size of our 1 bed, 2 bed. We know roughly our gross to net ratio. Or you can work on different assumptions. So if you get a building layout and straight away from the sales particulars it's 1,000 square meters, subject to windows and depth and all that, do you straight away mentally say, right, knock off 15% of that or 20% of that, so I'm left with 800 square meters of usable space, divide that by 50 square meter flat, boom, I'm left, I should be able to get X amount of flats. And do you do that?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, 15% of communal hallways and core areas. So that's what you're talking about is GIA to NSA is what we call it, net saleable area. And you do tend to lose about 15%. Most sites that we look at that have already been through planning and design with a different firm normally sit around sort of 25 to 20% inefficiencies. And Ben's always trying to drive that up. Some sites, if you have a tower block, your communals, hallways, and lobbies will probably be 15, maybe 15%, maybe even more, especially if you're over the threshold of 5 or 6 stories for the health and safety, where you have to have a second stair core in. But if, like us, we tend to develop buildings that are 3 stories or less, and you can actually drive that efficiency up to 88, 89% in some instances, because you've got a lot of curbside access for a lot of the properties. But yeah, that's a rule of thumb we use. So gross area minus 15%. We then, like I say, you've got to pull together assumptions and anticipate exactly how it looks. You then may start modeling around with actual layouts. So we phase every process to bid on a site. So first off, we do that rule of thumb. We get the analysis going, and then we realize actually there is good value in spending more time on this deal because the purchase price against the end value and the numbers look.
Sorry, Jack, just before you carry on with that, is that because from like the question, so assuming you had a layout, a building came forward on a PDF, 1,000 square meters, one of the first things or easy things you would do is knock off a percentage for communals, divide the rest by your average apartment size that you're looking to in that area, call it 50 square meters.
Yep.
So you know that you can build in that flat, whatever it is, 16, 17 flats, just pick
Correct.
a number from there. Then you look at the sale value of that and you say, right, that's going to be approximately 250 grand a flat. So whatever that works out to be, 4 million something. And then if you straight away then look at the purchase price, which the vendor wants £1 million for this, which typically is always a figure that everyone wants, minus says, but you're now left with X. Is there something else? And then if you look, obviously like a green, amber, red system, just because you basically there can be so many deals out there. Just get into which ones on the face of it have, like as you said, taking that next step of how do you know when to go and do that extra due diligence that you're now talking about?
It's when the pricing is within that. So I always say to our team, there's only 3 things that can change on an Excel sheet, and that, in my opinion, is the purchase price, the build cost, and the gross development value. Everything else should be a calculation that you have in your spreadsheet, which changes it for you, because all your legal fees, professional fees, obviously within construction, you've got demolition, sales costs, legals at the back end, finance costs. That doesn't really change day in, day out.
Just
that's
percentage based.
Same rules. Yeah. So if you haven't already on your spreadsheet got those metrics that I've just mentioned as a automated input that you're not putting in, then it leaves you less room for error, because you're focusing on the purchase price, which is quite an easy one because you can change that and you need to negotiate that. Your build costs are one of the hardest things to narrow down, and what a lot of people neglect. The most important, most fundamental thing in any development deal is getting the gross development value right, because it's the biggest number on your spreadsheet. Therefore, if it's out 10%, it has the biggest impact on the viability of that scheme. So we factor all of those things in. If there's a marginal profit, like a 10% return on GDV on the guide price against exit value, we'll then push that further, because we know that we can value engineer. With development, our role is, once something's secured, our role is to push the end value as high as it can go and reduce the cost as low as they can go, because that is our gap. That is our profit margin gap. So we focus on those 2 elements once we've committed on the site. But before we commit on the site, we know that we might be able to negotiate the position down, maybe structure it in a way that we've got a deferred payment coming in, maybe structure it in a creative way that our concerns or costs are negated, put an over position in place or whatever it may be. We can then look at, can we redesign the flats and get mezzanine floors in, add additional building on site, elements that increase the value, which also increase the costs, but then nurse it through. You'll find that you might, for an example, we were bidding on a site in Oxford, and the person that ended up buying the site paid the same value as our purchase price and our build costs added together. So I knew that site was going to be outpriced and we wouldn't be able to compete. So it's the most, I mentioned the most important thing for your spreadsheet is the gross development value. The most important thing for you is your own time. So it's not getting caught down rabbit holes or spending too much time on deals that are unviable and the expectations are too high. So it's navigating that field of deals where you are honing down and spending more time on the ones that look like they're more likely to be getting over the line.
On your phase one estimates, then, if you had a guide, if you had something, because when the first question we get with every deal that comes in is how much does the vendor want all the time. We're just trying to get straight to that figure straight away because I hate wasting time. I just want to know what they've already got in their mind or what has already been hypothetically valued at, and then basically we'll do that. We'll get the layout or the size area, and we'll work out with very very quick assumptions like you've said there. Take off circulation space and divide the rest by typical apartment sizes or room size if you're going to go down like HMOs, for example, and you're left with the amount of units you can effectively sell or rent, and then your appraisal, as Jack said, whatever the sales price is or the rent figures and your build cost, the rest of it should really calculate for you, and then you're left. That will spit out with your margin, as you've mentioned, Stuart, what your purchase price, the amount you can buy it for, very, very crudely. And if that is so Jack, you said if that's about 10%, you will progress it. What stage, guys? Because you mentioned about time, do you just kill it off and you just don't even offer? You just move on.
So
or do you always offer, regardless of?
So
always offer.
10%. We always, if we've gone to the work to pull the numbers together, we always offer. A quicker rule of thumb that we use for any listeners out there is if a site is a land site and the guide price is above 20% of the gross development value, we'll can it and tell them it's overpriced immediately without spending any time on it. If the purchase price of a building that we're converting is over 35% of the gross development value, we'll can it and tell it it's overpriced immediately. You start building those rules of thumbs, you start getting into your head, what can I pay per plot? What can I pay per square foot on exit, which is your percentage? And if you're not building those, I know what I can pay per bed in our HMO portfolio as well. So we can pay up to 65k per bed purchase price because I know our costs, I know our room rates, and I know what it's going to refinance at. So build those processes in. Your acquisitions will get way quicker, like 10x quicker than 1x quicker.
We work on plot value on new build a lot more than we do with. To be honest, we do that a lot more than we do with conversion zone, because with the conversions, it really just depend on the type of conversion and. Because we can have two conversion buildings. One, like I said, one's a rectangle. You're just basically going in there and might be doing some internal wall insulation, floor insulation. The rest is just boxing. And then you have some that are literally like navigating a maze to reconstruct, and it's just so expensive that way. But
that is the nuance that makes conversions so much more difficult.
And if you do Stuart's model as well, so sorry, Stu, I know you're not trying to keep it a secret, but if you then blend it with like a yield compressed commercial tenant as well, everything it just becomes bespoke. You just can't really model that off a. Sorry, Stu.
I think for your first phase appraisal document, I normally look between 25. If it's between 25 and 30% of the GDV will be based on the building type. So if it's more of a complex building, it's 25% of the purchase is what I can afford to offer for the building, and it's up to 30% if it's a really straightforward build, because we'll make that up in the build costs. And we can spend. I mean, we've got one at the moment where the guy wants $1.5 million for it. We can only value it at 1.3. That's the top end because it's such an easy development. He wants a quick sale and he wants it unconditional. Well, our offer's 1.3. If we get to 1.5, it's ours, but it's just not worth trying to chase that 200 grand because we are getting deals every week at the moment coming through, or opportunities that are coming through. So even though I want it, it's a great area. It's just, it's 1.3. And if you want to move, we will cash buy and we can go tomorrow. And that will sit for 2 weeks. And I've actually sent that on a WhatsApp to go, that's our price. If you think it's worth us putting a formal offer together, we will. And I've already been there with the architect, and we already know it's an MA and it's a real straightforward build out because the building's just so good. It's a 1990s. There is hope value as well. That's the art, is working out how much you can get from the existing building. And if there's any extra value, like Jack was saying, adding mezzanines, big car park, undercroft, is it worth it? In my opinion, I don't think a lot of them things are worth it. I just think look at the deal as it is, get in, get it done, refinance it and move on and add volume rather than squeeze every pound out of it. I mean, Jack disagrees. He'll do it in 6 phases, and that will take a 2-year plan where I think we can just get in, buy them and come back to them if the markets change. But it's always between 25 and 30% is where we try and.
I think it's worth adding as well for anyone looking to get into conversions. They are so much more nuanced than new builds, where you can just have a plot value. Sure, there's the ground and contamination things to think about, but with conversions, you really could pick up 1,000 square meter building here and 1,000 square meter building here, and you could spend double on the refurb per square meter.
Yeah, you can, and it's also different build teams too. Like we do both the new build and conversion, but predominantly new build. Like over 90% of what we do is new build, and the trades are different because with new build it's like a Lego set. And if things aren't ready, people will walk off site. They get paid by the rate. They want to come in, they want to bang up the plaster boards and they go. On a conversion with an awkward layout, they've got there potentially might not even be many straight runs, and people just or what you find with conversion, you need a lot of people who are actually a bit multi-skilled. Is that a problem comes up, and which it will guaranteed, and it needs just a slight change in your plan of bashing it out. And the new build builders, they struggle with it. They just can't. Whether they just make more money in new build, and
I do think it depends. It depends on the scope of the package, though, doesn't it? Like if you've got, if you're doing a like we're about to go into a refurb of a commercial property now, and it's pretty much it's like an open canvas. It's a big nightclub. So there's a lot of walls to go at. So we can bring in just a dry liner to go, look, there's your meterage, just go for it. As we get to the closing out, though, that's when the multi-skilleds are more useful because there could be a few nuances and maybe following on trades to prep for and other bits. And it does get a bit more tricky. But
that's where with conversions sorry, Stuart, you mentioned a very good point, is that you go in and do a strip out. If we would ever do a conversion, we would always carve out the strip out phase first ourselves anyway, and just take it back to the brick to expose everything before sending in a team, because the biggest problem is when they start covering stuff off and it's slightly different to any drawings, all hell breaks loose. Sorry.
So I want to Dorian's point, exactly that. If there was big chunky floor joists, which on inspection of just doing some small inspections, but like these are great, we can reuse these. We come to do the strip out, and now because we do everything in house, we can adapt to it. But if you've got everyone on a rate and they come in, and all of a sudden, what's happened is they've taken up the floor once upon a time and cut these old joists, they bolted them together, which was never going to meet regulation. So then we've got to get the engineers involved. Can we keep 60% and just remove the 40 that have been cut? Is it quicker just to rip them all out and do it again? So all those delays, if you're on a contract or a JCT contract, those downtimes can cost you thousands of pounds a day.
They come back for a variation if it's a traditional one,
Yeah, but if you've got to wait for engineers and stills and calculations and you can lose 3 weeks, that's going to cause you a world of pain, where with our guys, we can adapt and move them somewhere else. Why we're learning and building these systems. But yeah, I definitely think just go in there, strip the whole thing back so everyone can see what they're doing.
We split the contract with sometimes the main contractor does do the strip out and then the rest of it, but exact same as Dorian, we strip it out first so you can see everything and do your detailed design and structural drawings off the face of seeing everything as it is. And then get the final quote for the contractor, because then there's less variables.
But very quickly on this last question, because it was a dual question, because Stuart mentioned it and it is really important. So one of the part of the question was, how do you find good people? In my opinion, there's no real answer to that, as Jared remembers from his recruitment days. In this game, there's more people that talk good than their actions are good. And if you're going to get into a business and you need staff and you need people, you've got to get it through your mind already that is an ongoing, never-ending process, as Stuart says. And people will come and go, and you have to go through so many people to finally get a good team. And then once you get good people, you look after them and treat them well, and you cultivate a very good team. And it is also the same though with deals too. The problem is with most developers is they only ever really got 1 or 2 deals on their plate. You want leads coming in, as we've all got, on literally no later than a weekly basis, new leads coming in. So you never really feel so under pressure that you have to do this deal, so to speak, and try and spend 3 months on trying to make it work to squeeze out that final 200 grand, when really you just be like, our offer's 1.3, I've got more leads coming in. So and eventually they will because if it genuinely is overpriced, they won't be able to sell it. That is really the bottom line as well. So
super important. Offer on anything worth offering on. Offer on it at the right price. Even if the advertised price, you're not going to get it, just stick in a fucking low ball, because you put in enough of those, and eventually someone will just go, all right. And you go.
What was your stat, Jack? Most of your offers accepted have not been on the first one. It's all on the follow up.
Yeah. So we've actually bought. I think we're up to about 80 flats, development sites and houses since we set up the businesses across the board. And out of those 80, I think 6 of them were secured on the first bid. the rest, so 74 properties, we weren't the highest bidder. Property got pulled from the market. Someone else outbid us, and it's the follow-up process that's pulled it through and secured those sites. In the resi market, it's actually 1 in 3 transactions fall through between offer being accepted and the date of exchange. So you want to be there picking up that drop. That when the third drops out, you step in. Vendor's more motivated. You tend to get it at a better price. And you're also not dealing with the competition. We've actually got a phrase in our business in the acquisitions team, which is where if something's really well marketed and there's loads of people on the viewings, I'm talking tens of, maybe we've been on sites where 40, 50 bids have been put forward in a process, and sometimes our phrase is we're more likely to get an offer accepted on the follow up and not even be part of the original bidding process than we would if we were part of the original bidding process. And we've secured sites where people don't even know that it's coming back to market, and we've been on the case, on the agent, going, we could do this, we could do it quicker, where are they at in legals, give the site to us. That for, if that's being talked into their ear for months and the buyer's slow, guess what's going to happen? It's going to come over to old puppy JJ, and we're going to buy the site and get moving on it.
Puppy JJ. All right, moving on to the next question now, guys. That was hopefully useful for you, Jake, listening. And this one came through this morning as well, from Jack's story, I think it was. So Air Up There One has asked, level of 1 to 10. So out of 1 to 10, how chuffed are you with the King's Speech and local loss right to block build? I'm not entirely sure what this means. So, Jack, can you help us out here?
Yeah, so old King had a chat yesterday, didn't he? I've just pulled up sort of on the BBC website at a glance. So there's housing and planning reform, energy and infrastructure, transport, crime and borders, migration, employment, health and education, technology, constitutional measures, tax and spending, other bills, and just to sort of narrow down on ones that we're probably going to be focusing on, which is probably more energy and infrastructure and housing and planning. It's good that he's been, the king of our country is talking about a planning reform. We're being taken seriously, because any government can come in and talk about the implementations and changes they're going to make in planning, but their planning infrastructure bill is to hopefully streamline the process, approving critical infrastructure and overhaul the rules on compulsory purchase of land. And also there's slightly as a bill slightly coming in to support SME developers like us to push brownfield sites and grey belt sites through planning a lot quicker. There's also a renters' rights bill, which not a massive fan of, if I'm honest. So-called no-fault evictions and extending series of building safety rules for social tenants, basically giving the tenant more of a foothold on the estate that they're renting in. But the problem that I have with the renters' rights bill is, as soon as a renter, in my opinion, stops paying rent, they're not a renter, and that's the tenant that I don't like the support that they offer.
It's theft.
Any views on the planning infrastructure and renters' rights while we're on it?
Yeah, so obviously Wales have already brought in effectively. Well, they haven't abolished no fault evictions. It's just the time it takes to evict tenants has increased. I don't think. I'd be interested to see how they think they can just end no fault evictions, because as a landowner with properties with mortgages, there's always going to be a get out clause for you to be able to give. It'll probably go to 6 months notice like we have in Wales instead. So and then also the other thing is, as long as they provide assurances in there that any tenants that don't pay, again within 2 months arrears, you can still evict them within like 14 days or give them a 14-day notice. Then really it shouldn't have, to be honest with you, too much impact in my opinion. I don't think they talked about putting a rental cap in, though, did they?
No, not a rental
cap.
No.
So really, if all it is extending no fault evictions, and still, as long as they keep rights in it for tenants who don't pay, for landlords to still move on it within 14 days of 2 months arrears, then for all of us, it shouldn't really have much of an issue, to be honest.
No, I don't have a problem with that, to be honest.
That's
6 months
as well,
yeah, pretty fair.
Because we won't really be evicting good tenants unless you want to sell your asset, and that will take 6 months anyway.
I do think it's worth adding that whilst I'm not too bothered about this legislation, I don't think it affects us. We're generally at the upper end of the market for the rents, so I'm not too worried about anything that's come in. But what I am worried about is the precedent it sets, where government's going to be super careful of how it steps on legislation around renters' rights and thinking of the backlash for the landlord. Now, they have actually, Labour have come in and been great as far as I'm concerned for the property market. They've come in and really looked at it both from the landlord and the tenant's standpoint, and the way they explained, it's the fringe landlords that we're trying to be careful of. We appreciate that a lot of the landlord sector, these are good people, and we need to also protect them. So there has been both sides, rather than this every landlord is a money grabbing prick, which has been the sort of census leading up for the elections just to win votes. Now it does seem a bit more measured, but they've got to be so careful of fucking with rents too much, because we've seen it in Germany and other countries.
I don't think they are touching rents, though, are they?
No. I know they're not now,
rent.
but it sets a precedent where they might, in the next round of bills, they might go, "Oh, we should probably add this as well." We added some stuff before. Let's add this and add that and add that.
Didn't Scotland try it and it proved to be disastrous? I think the reason why rents are going up is because they're not building. Control. So I think they tagged in the planning system as the reason why they're not building. If they build more, then there'll be more availability for both buyers and renters.
Supply and demand.
Supply and demand, and that will kind of sort it out. But
Dorian, on your point, so the planning system, I think, where they need to focus most of their attention, and I think Angela Rayner's put that as a number one thing to focus on.
They don't have it in Wales.
I met someone quite high up from Homes England last week, and he said he's had sort of 3-4 meetings with her. That was last week already, since she's been in office, and apparently she's going to just literally tear up the whole planning system. So all of the reports and all of the things we need to do, it will be down to the risk of the developer. So if you buy a site, it's risk, it's a commercial decision you made as a developer, which I think rightfully so, right? You're still going to need to get these reports done to make sure you're making a commercial decision. But why the council have to be so interlinked with everything? No one knows how it's going to work yet.
The only problem I got, and I know they're different, but Wales has been Labour and is Labour, and our planning system here is really, really, really bad and poor, and our SAB system is really slow. We've got sites that we just cannot build. It takes years to get planning permission for sites in the settlement boundary. Allocated sites at the moment we can't get planning for. I've been in the Senedd campaigning about and providing evidence that how poor it is and all the low-hanging fruit they could do. And nothing really seems to be happening in Wales. So it'd be very interesting. And I'm hopeful that if England Labour start making moves, then Wales Labour actually get some pressure to do the same. But from what what they will find out as well, which the Conservatives had and quickly folded because there's more wealthy people, is the amount of backlash, regardless of what they said, the amount of backlash they're going to have as soon as they start saying in more detail their policies is going to be it's going to be insane. So it would be interesting to see how strong they stick to that approach when those the revolt comes, and it will come.
Well, one of their
Dorian, is Wales got its own NPPF?
We have PPW, Planning Policy Wales.
Similar thing though.
But it's a similar thing. That the biggest problems in the planning system, to be honest, one is the reports and stuff. But to be honest with you, it's not even that. The biggest problem in the planning system is the amount of time. Like the principle for development can be accepted, but actually getting at the details and everyone in agreement with all third parties and in internal councils' siloed divisions. Everyone's got to come back in agreement to the deal. They go into such detail of like relatively minor things. We had a site that was on, basically it took 9 months for the planning officer and the placemaking officer in the same council to basically, they were disagreeing with each other on how the scheme looked. And that's completely individual perception. And us as the developers are basically stood back. And the housing association is kind of stood back, and we're like, we know there's a waiting list, we know there's grant availability, we're ready to build it, but they just could not agree on the design of the building. We had to do 3, 4, 5 different designs before we could finally get it agreed, and that was the only reason of the delay on that site. And we've got so many different examples like that. It's just fucking broken.
Well, I think there's they did say, and I've not seen the King's speech, so I need to catch up with that. But I think they did say that they were going to take away the power for the public to be able to, or for committees to be able to reject schemes on the grounds of their use class, but actually they can, but rather than reject them and say whether it's an if, can you do the scheme or not, it's more how you do the scheme. So that they can't reject the principle of the scheme, but what they can do is reject how the scheme may look or how the scheme is built or treated, which equally could cause similar amounts of delays. But I do think that's a step in the right direction. They're taking that a sort of like
I tell you what the government need to do. I tell you what the government really need to do. They need to go and do some mystery shopping and put in some applications themselves as a potential private developer and really see from an unbiased point of view what actually happens in the system, because it's all well and good they're having meetings and conversations, but I've had direct conversations with some people in local authority that take pride in slowing down the planning process, and they succumb to pressure, and like they will find a way. My pessimistic view, they will find a way to slow it down still anyway, because they may not be able to say no, but they're going to bring housing targets back in. But at the moment, unless they have a very fast appeal process, which we don't, then the councils will drag out and drag out and drag out. Like for us in Wales, for example, and England's probably the same, but our options are we either extend the application because it's not been determined yet, because they haven't got enough information, or they're complaining about stuff, or we tell them to terminate and refuse it, and we then take it to appeal when appeals are taking 11 months. That's our two options. So unless they can bring all this in, but unless some consequences come to it, like there's a fast appeal and it'd be awarded costs against the councils, but that appeal process actually has to be determined quite quickly, then we're still going to have delays, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yep. We're still waiting. We've got another 2 weeks to wait because the planners need to choose whether they want us to put white or anthracite. We want to pay more money to make the building look better for anthracite grey on the outside, white on the inside, because it will go better with the scheme. And we're still waiting. The lady is on a 2-week holiday now, so we will continue to have holes in the building.
The amount of out of office emails, just
she's a lovely lady, to be honest, and they're pro build, so I'm not going to moan too much. But ultimately, it just takes so fucking long.
Yeah, it's products. But yeah, I mean that's that for some of the agenda. We've got some questions we can go to that I think we come up with ourselves. Just over time, we've added a few ideas to a shared sheet that we have for whenever we just want to pick a random topic. Should we get on to the first two of these? They're pretty easy. Just one negative of the week, one positive of the week. See how everyone's sort of been getting on, or maybe of the month or whatever. Should we do that, guys? One negative, one positive, something. It's like deep, nothing too cheap.
I probably can predict already what your negatives are. It's either going to be planning and cash flow. It's going to be one.
I know. I can tell you what your positive is. You got yourself a Bitcoin wallet, mate. Bitcoin account.
Yeah, man.
Dorian's stepping into the 21st century. So well done, Dorian. We'll start. Go on, Dorian. Start with you. What's your one positive, one negative of the week? Anything.
Well, one positive is I opened a Bitcoin account.
Well done, mate.
Yeah. So
on Swissborg,
on
EU regulated.
Yeah, yes. So thanks for that recommendation, Stuart. But yeah, no. There's lots of stuff that happens. So I'm just really keeping it clean. But in terms of positivity, one good thing for us at the moment is that we are seeing that the high inflation period that we got really hammered with, so like so many fixed price developers or contractors got hit with as well, has returned. The margin in deals are back. It's we're back to a viable kind of business model and plan, and so which is all exciting, and our forecasts look very, very exciting, which is good. Our negative is pretty much as I predicted, is we're experiencing what I would class as unnecessary delays across the vast majority of our pipeline. Literally, we've got 20 different sites all going through different stages, and nearly all of them are experiencing delays. And when you actually drill into the points that we're getting delayed on, it's extremely frustrating how unpragmatic and irrelevant it is. I'm of a believer, right? If any issue comes to me, I say, will this matter in a year? And if the answer is no, it's not really a big deal. And I kind of just look for the quickest way to move on, or just delegate a task. And I really try to spend my time on those big things that actually matter. And a lot of the stuff that comes up, in my opinion, and that we get delayed on, they are kind of irrelevant, because if that individual moves, then someone else who comes in to replace him will have a different view. So if that happens, then that in my opinion is kind of irrelevant. It's like, it's too subjective. So apologies, I'm rambling, but that's my challenge at the moment. We've got a lot of sites, stuff that should have started at the moment, and they haven't started, and that in itself causes cash flow pressures.
Nice. Jackie boy, one positive, one negative.
Negative, like Dorian said, without doing the standard planning and cash flow, we've been working on site for half a year. In planning, it's been a bit of a pig to get through for a number of reasons. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this before, but it's basically an industrially commercial building site that we're getting planning for 9 units in west of London. And really long story short, we put in a certificate of lawful use application to prove its existing use, because there was no evidence of actually what use class it was. The planning officer came back, rejected the application, and said that the use class was nil, NILL. So anyway, so we also had a Class MA prior approval application running in tangent, but 2 weeks behind the certificate of lawful use. So we had to redo both those applications. We had to simulate the sound of the machines that were in the building for 35 years, which was printing press, to get the clued application, which we got, and now the prior approval application. But the negative is we've got a very impatient seller that's throwing their weight around and basically forcing deadlines on us, which doesn't really work within our timescale. So dealing and handling that, they're basically pushing for us to get things going. We've got an option to purchase the site, and they're trying to bring deadlines forward and things like that, which is going against the original heads of terms. So basically cooling down a vendor is one of the negatives, which is not easy, especially when you're as investors as we are at this stage. Are we doing positives, or is that coming later?
Yeah, positives, mate. Go on, give some love.
I've got 2 positives that sort of combine. It's our XP Properties 6th birthday today.
Happy birthday!
It feels like fucking 50 years we've been in business. I don't know if you lot feel that way, but it's feel like 6 years. But anyway, so yesterday we did company celebration party with investors, business partners that we work with, and bits and bobs that came to our office for a few beers and some good food. But also a part of that, what we do is every quarter we sit every person in Central Suites, Aura, XP Surveys, and XP Property down, and we do a sort of quarterly review of all the businesses. So that was a highlight, sitting everyone down so that everyone knows what we're up to.
Banging, mate. Banging. What about you, Stu Dog?
Negative, I would say I have never been more tired than I am right now. I know it's 8 o'clock now, but I am so tired, and I can't believe more young dads don't shout and scream from the rooftops. And I've given no sympathy to any of my friends. Obviously, I left to have kids a little bit later on and enjoyed my freedom. And my God, I'm glad I did. I love my kids to pieces, but I do feel like it's my calling is to shout about how flipping hard kids are. I'm just so tired. Literally, I've got a 7-8-month-old and a 2.5, almost 3-year-old, and it's just exhausting. And having a second one has just blitzed me. And when I work at quite a high energy level to keep momentum going and to keep growing, I have felt the last few weeks it's really taken a toll on me.
It's more than twice as hard, though, Stu, isn't it? It's more than twice as hard.
It's not having to. I was told it's almost hilarious, because now I watch it. If I see anyone that's having a baby shower party and they got all their nice little outfits and it's all giggly time, I'm just thinking, you have no idea what's coming, man. A bus is about to hit you harder than you've ever felt. But don't get me wrong, I love my kids dearly, and I would never change it for the world. And it's the joy is so much more than the pain. But I'm in the depths of it right now, and I'm just trying to find constant level, because I'm so used to performing and being highly energetic and keeping everyone going. And over the last 3 weeks, I've really suffered. So yeah, my energy levels. I will work through it, and over the next few weeks. And the wife's knackered as well.
It's only temporary, mate. You only got 18 years to go through.
Yeah, but now I'm asking customers. Oh, it's so funny, because people with 2 kids go, "Oh yeah, it's so fucking hard, isn't it?" It's like, well, why does no one talk about this before you have kids? How hard 1 to 2 is. 1, you can hand it off and you can have a bit of free time and just recharge. But 2, there is just 0 time off.
To be fair, have you never heard of terrible twos?
Yeah, well, it's
Stu. I did tell you, I did tell you, Stu, beforehand, but nobody ever listens.
No one can understand it until you live in it.
Yeah, you can, and you still, like you said, you would still want them anyway, because it's the problem that a lot of the stress comes from. They just kick off so much.
Everything. They just want all of your time. Literally, I walk through the door, the missus, because we've got 2 weeks off in July, so we had the first week off and the last week off. We just thought, and my daughter's changing nursery, so we thought we'll just have a month off. Charlotte will look after them 2 weeks in between, and obviously that's 4 weeks in total of them being off. And nursery's worth every penny. Oh my God. They can charge what they need to charge just to give you sort of 4 or 5 hours off in a day. But the wife's knackered as well. So then you become just less tired of each other because you haven't got any time for each other. Right, you're just trying to get through the days. And at night, we go to bed. And then you literally just become, just living together to get through it. But, we get to like 7:30, they're asleep. The last thing me and the missus want to do is sit and have a nice conversation about how each other's days have been. We'll sit like zombies for 2 or 3 hours. You need that time to recharge. Before you know it, it's 7 at night. And then at 3 and you're up for whatever reason, because the light's gone out or the Toonies box needs turning on at 3:30 in the morning. And before you know it, it's 5:45 and away you go again. And it's just like, it's 7 days a week. I'm knackered. Anyway, that's my negative. And it's not a negative. It's just, I just feel bollocks.
Look at an au pair, mate. See if you can get an au pair.
Yeah, I said that last night, but Char's like, I don't want another body to have to clear up over. And we've got a spare room, which they could move in. But it was an idea I said last night that maybe we should get someone who can come in for 6 months.
Give it a go. You could just fire them after a week. You know what I mean? If they're shit.
Equally,
very considerate you of there, Ryan. Somebody moving into the house, give it a whirl.
Hey, look, they're moving rent free. You know what I mean?
Days left before I make a decision.
But ultimately, will you feel defeat then? And someone's like, "You're not giving up." We wouldn't give up. We're going to keep plowing through it. But and again, but then I saw a customer yesterday who's got a 10 and an 8-year-old, and I was having the exact same conversation with her, and she was saying, "Oh no, it gets a lot tougher." I'm like, "Are you joking?" I thought it's going to get easier as they get older. It's just they become more demanding. They get more tough. You get less time. They're more messy. So yeah. We'll see. But my positive low, I would say, is what we're doing. I've got a very good feeling about the outsourcing team we're trying to build, like the third-party consultancy. I've been very much inverted, as in trying to keep total control of having all the guys in-house sort of come with us. And I think for them as well, like the fear of them giving up a piece of their job is quite scary for them because they're thinking, well, we're outsourcing this, we're going to outsource everything. But over the last few months, we've really been focusing on building a relationship up with a brand new architectural firm, brand new structural engineers, brand new planning consultants, brand new people who do all the reports and stuff. And we're sort of getting this little team now, which is really feeling quite good that we can build on that and obviously build scale. So once, it's always small steps, but small waves will lead to big waves. And it's all coming together. So got a great little team. And we continue to fight and push on.
Fight the good fight, mate. Nice. I mean, mine are relatively straightforward. So I've got 2 positives because one is we've got a buyer admin starting in the construction on Monday. I've been setting her up on all the systems and stuff this week, preempting it. Got her a MacBook yesterday, and I think she's going to be a game changer for us in the back office of construction. Really strengthen the administrative side of that business and the buying and saving on material rates and things like that. So quite excited for that. Should be good. Also, there's going to be some work training her up. So probably a month or 2 of work ahead, and then it should be a whole new path for us after that. And also today we're finishing off one of our new HMOs, which is we've basically done them to a much higher spec now as a new product offering. And it's going to be fun getting all the media content today. I've basically got a whole day on site just filming a whole load of different, from ads to video types and discovery sort of videos and shit like that. So quite a lot to do there. So that'd be fun. Negative is that whilst we have this admin buyer starting on the Monday, we're still not there and competent enough with the Builder Trend software that we've implemented, which is quite a lot to do, as well as running the business and new sites starting. But we need to get that shit sorted on Builder Trend. So I think that's going to cause us a bit of pain for the next month without having that ready for her to walk into. And the rest. Yeah. So I'm slightly annoyed at that, but hopefully we'll sort that over the next month and just accept it's going to be a bit of a struggle. But that's me. One more thing. We've got another one on here. Biggest problems on site. Want to touch on that? Biggest problems on site. So I think there was a separate one that one of us must have put down at some point, which was, what is the biggest challenge we've had to deal with on site in the construction? So that might be a good one to roll around the room with. Touched on construction a lot today. So Jack, do you want to start us there, mate?
Yeah. For the obviously central streets, there's houses. I find that our biggest issue is always fucking neighbours. Getting access or scaffolding on the oversailing their garden or whatever. You wouldn't believe the luck we had on one house that we literally, the day we completed on this rundown house, the chimney crumbled, rolled down the roof, bricks rolled down the roof, and then hit a car next door on the day we completed. So it was literally like, if it happened 6 hours before, it would have been the previous owner's responsibility. But there's nothing we can do on it. But yeah, neighbours kicking off, wants us to repair their car, which is fair enough. But there's not really, I can't get scaffolding up on the day we complete within an hour and protect everything. And but bloody nightmare. So small sites probably neighbours, bigger sites probably the actual contractor themselves or the cash flow to keep that project going. The two biggest issues we have on site, I would have said, because obviously when you're instructing a contractor, you're sort of giving them your baby and letting them take care of it and let it grow up and build it. And on the topic of kids for Stuart, so probably just generally, little detailed stuff like, what am I thinking of? Like access or parking isn't an issue for us because we're not running that site. That's over to the contractor. Whereas I'd have probably said that maybe the emergencies like hitting a water main or a gas main in the underground is obviously quite a biggie, but to some degree we hand over the site and then they hand it back to us. So it's more for us, the contractor themselves, which sort of ties in with, we've got an issue with another neighbour on another site about scaffolding, and the contractors, at loggerheads and having a row match with her. So the problem there is it the neighbour or is it our contractor that just isn't very good at smoothing over a process? And he just sent me a number and said, "Can you deal with it?" I can't, and that is who is the problem there. And then cash flow. You obviously always want to keep your job moving on time and on budget, and the last thing you want is your contractor to move quicker than your budget. Because then you're slumming the project down, and that has actually happened for us before, where we're obviously waylaid with the cash flow, the drawdowns, and the bank. So dealing with that, but I'd probably say neighbours, if I'm really honest. They're just fucking aggro.
Yeah, agreed. Neighbours could be a fucking nightmare.
On neighbours, so our Twickenham site. So we are 4 floors high, 3 floors above ground. 3 flats either side, 2 shops and 2 freeholders, where our architects were like, you really need to start approaching these neighbours and getting them on board. So we put a letter out. We just put a nice letter in saying, hello neighbours, love to get to know you and show you what we're doing. We've shipped the site out now. We had a real good turnout, actually, all but one of the neighbours didn't turn up, but they also invited friends and people in the industry wanted to come have a look, which was a great time for Will and I to sit with them in the building. We took all our photo books out. We showed them we're loft specialists and what we're going to be doing with these stills, and sort of avoided the whole party wall issue, but talked about what was their concerns. And one of them had a concern about the sound, but it's a 9-inch solid wall with no plaster on the wall, and he could hear the demo work. And we was like, done a lot of the building work now, but what do you guys want out of it? And effectively, we've agreed there's a big tree in the garden that's blocking a lot of the light. It's not really blocking too much of our light, even though we had a daylight survey done now. But the tree is literally growing through like the bathrooms and kitchens of some of these other flats. It's like a sort of bulbous shape at the back. Jesus. And I just sort of dropped it in there and was like, look, what is everyone, no one wants to get rid of trees. We don't know what tree huggers we're talking to. And that the lady who was sort of the top of the tree, if you like, of this family, of this committee of neighbours was like, get rid of the bloody thing. So before we knew it, we were talking about keeping it as a separate planning application. To actually said, well, we're happy to head this if you want to put a little WhatsApp group together. Just bringing everyone on board, which is obviously ultimately what our goal is to get this thing done, developed and out of there without causing too many headaches. But, we're talking now about taking this tree out.
I rate that, mate. I see it on your stories where you'll bring in all the neighbours, won't you, when you're doing a project to get them to sympathise with the scheme and things like that, don't you?
Well, we all want it to look better around the back. So for the sake of us, we're going to dig out the drainage to put our new drainage in 7 meters. We might as well go 15, 16 meters and just sort out the whole path. It will look nicer. There's like 6 fences to change and this tree to come out. We're like, look, we don't want to cause anyone any headaches, and we'd much rather betterment of the scheme. Before we know it, they're all rallying around wanting to put letters of support on our planning application. We're ready to send an email out to them all to say, look, this is what we're doing. Any support you can give us. We've told them about the sound regs between the walls and how we're going to do it, and then showing them existing jobs we've done. So before you know it, you've got a problem that could have been 10 neighbours, well, eight neighbours, 2 freeholders, causing us a world of pain and costing us tens and tens of thousands of pounds in party walls, to now we've got the full weight of support of everyone sort of seeing what we're going to do, show them the end goal. We've invited them back at the end so we can show them around. And ultimately, it's what's going to cost us a few grand to take a tree out and to do some additional fence panels. And they want to put a little gate at the back. Like the lady literally next door was saying, if you can get this done, I'll literally hug you. Like, this is, I've been our problem for years and years and years. So again, on the previous episode, I think we're talking about negotiations. I was there to do a deal. I don't know what the deal looked like, but we had a plan. We went there, we met them, and then what came out of the mix was everyone's unwavering support, a WhatsApp group now for the residential community. So everyone's tied together through our building. And and hopefully we'll get a much better rear access and a rear yard for doing a little bit more work. But I'd much rather do that than I would do to try and fight them all having a bloody party war.
I rate that, mate.
Yeah, that was my biggest problem, and that was the solution of last week.
Equally though, like, I rate that massively. I think that's wicked, like, and how you've managed to spin that and get what you needed out of it. But equally, could that go the other way, where if you involve them too much, then you get too many opinions and could go mental?
All but one person didn't turn up, and that one person could be a problem. And I'm not going to talk about it on a podcast until we're in and out there, and I'll happily talk about it at the end. But we've got 3 or 4 negotiation strategies which get a lot tougher down that process. So we've got everyone on board, so we've got the majority, which is great. But if that one person does start causing us a world of pain, then we've got some pretty heavy stuff. Basically, land boundaries, all that stuff we can use in our favor if we need to. But that's all up the sleeve for later on, and hopefully it doesn't go that way.
Nice.
But yeah, we have got
Big D
things lined up.
We saying Big D worst problem on site?
Yeah, well, just touch on that. We have to engage with the neighbours on every site we do as well for social housing, because we work with housing associations and local authorities. We have to be shown to that, engaging with the community. But because we build social housing, it is never a pleasant experience. So there is nothing we can say or do at all, really, most of the time, to get neighbours on side. So it is a very painful process. They just do not want social housing where they live. Ultimately, it's different for you, Stu. There, you're building a high quality product. You'll still have people who are disgruntled, who just don't want change. But it is. We have found it fundamentally different with like a private high end product versus social housing. These people will say, neighbours will say, we don't mind if you put private housing there. We don't want social housing there. There's just really nothing I could do about it other than just let the planning system base it on its policy. But in terms of biggest, we have 10 live sites at any given time. Every day there's always issues on site. I have a very good team that can resolve the issues, and that's really, things only come to me when they can't be resolved by the team. But the biggest issue on site really, it stems most of the time from like a pre-construction problem, is because in today's world, and like I said, we predominantly do new build, and our schemes are between 20 and 60 units in size. And the amount of drawings you need and input you need from people now to do a development is absolutely insane. The amount of, we've already talked about through the planning process how many surveys and reports we need. But I'm looking at a site now we're building. On our drawing register, there's 170 different drawings that we have across the different packages. 170 different drawings, and each one of them could potentially hold an issue that when you get to that element of the job on site, it doesn't work, or it's not detailed enough, or the designer has left, because a lot of these things are copy and paste from designers, especially the notes and the keys, and they just don't cross check. And whilst we've got a technical team who are looking after a handful of sites, if you have several sites and all of them have 170 drawings, it just doesn't. It is very easy for things to slip through the net, and the vast majority of our delays, like the root cause of them, stems from either technical issue, pre-construction issue, or like a procurement issue. And then because once you've got once you have these drawings and you have to cross-check these drawings with the client spec and building regs, etc., and structure warranty requirements, and then when the commercial team go out to tender and provide the drawings and spec, it still comes back sometimes with the people who are tendering. They tender in a different spec because they are making a suggested change, but that's not really when you're working on behalf of a client that has a very specific spec. That's sometimes not that helpful because they own like 10,000 homes and don't want things to be changed because of maintenance purposes. So there's so much there that can slip through the nets, basically is what I'm saying, and it always causes us a headache. And but my biggest frustration on site, I don't know if you guys are like this, is I wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist, but I am very system and efficiency driven. And actually, if you go around construction sites, whilst they are typically efficient, it can drive you nuts how inefficient things seem to be. Like we got a timber frame house up, kit up, but we can't put stairs in. The reason why we can't put stairs in is because we're brownfield developers and everything is slightly different. We don't have, when the frame goes up, the stair manufacturers come out. They want to come out to measure to make sure it fits, and then they'll go away and build the stairs based on the measurements. So, but then the problem, this was talking about the ladder. The problem is now first fix and stuff can't continue upstairs whilst we're waiting for that to happen. So now you've actually got this downtime, and when you're building like 20, 30, you're thinking to yourself, that's actually quite a lot of downtime, really. That really shouldn't be happening, because the frame's up, and now we're going to wait 4 weeks for stairs to go in before everything else to continue.
Why?
Oh, it's just
staircase, or just
well, you could put temporary stair. You put Well, I said ladder, but then these health and safety issues come up. Temporary staircase you could do, but if you have to do that across 20 plots, it's actually very expensive. And then so.
Could you
my biggest problem is I could drive myself crazy with these like
the window.
I'm just thinking, going at the rate you're going, Dorian. Can't you just store temporary staircases off site, so you take them from site to site?
But if you look at like how many plots we're building, I know it's all at different stages, but then you have somebody like running around different sites and stuff, and you effectively need to employ somebody then, and it just all starts ramping up. It's like we're trying to be. Like we're trying to always get that sweet spot of how can we be the most efficient without adding in an extra layer of complexity or resource or waste or cost, and like it never ends. Like there's always something coming up. It's like we've got a site now, the whole building's up, scaffolding's down, the windows aren't in. And like, why aren't the windows in? Like, what's going on here? And it's taking so long to get windows signed off and agreed.
We got our staircases made in a week. But again, I'm a loft company.
The staircases get made. The staircases get made in a week, but the problem is they only come out once the frame's up, and then they measure, go away, confirm the design and price due, and then once it's signed off, then it's a week to deliver it. But that period before the week manufacture takes 2 to 3 weeks. Do you know what I mean? So.
Can you not have any follow-on trades like work around that on the ground floor before needing to?
We're talking about the stair package now, mind out of the whole of that, and this happened like these inefficiencies across every single package on a site. And my problem is that it drives me nuts. And like, if I think about it too much, I actually drive myself like really, really bad mentally. Because I like to go to the optimum efficiency model, and then you actually realize that. It is actually not possible.
Doesn't exist.
It is not possible. And obviously that's where factories potentially come in. But the problem then, there's a whole different raft of issues why that doesn't work then either. And we're just so backwards and fucking ancient. But yeah.
Well, look, there's some positivity to finish the podcast off. Stu's got a shoot to go and do a health and safety meeting. Actually,
talking of health and safety, I've just opened up the Dragon. I've invited him to site to get an absolute grilling now. So I'm expecting to get there and go, why are you not doing this? You need to be doing this. I'm like, fuck.
Stu, I dare you to turn up, Stu, as well, with no boots on, no hard hat, and no high vis. You just walk around in
I've
your
got flip flops on, shorts. Yeah, that's it. Sunglasses.
Brilliant.
In a dark space.
But good.
You'll have a fit straight away.
It's been a good episode, guys.
I'll report back.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Hopefully useful to anyone listening. If you are listening, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Subscriptions help us, so please subscribe and drop us some comments for next week's episode. And we've got some backed up now, so we'll do some more audience comments for next week. The podcast is released every Thursday at 5:30 a.m. on Spotify and on YouTube. So make sure you check it out, give it a like, and big love, appreciated, and we'll see you guys next week. Lovely stuff.
Hasta la vista.
Hasta la vista.
What's the?
Oh yeah. Your hair's gradually getting better.
Ground up sound. Ooh, yeah. Real estate deal. We lay 'em